Learning about autism saved our relationship. I'm Michelle Preston.
I'm Andrew Preston.
And we wrote a book called Friendship Love Autism. And the reason we wrote our book is because anytime we shared our story on social media, we got so many questions from amazing followers who wanted to know all about our diagnosis process and how we figured it out and how we got a diagnosis. So we just thought we'll share it with the world.
Yeah. As soon as we started sharing, we started getting a lot of views.
People wanted to know.
It seemed that whenever we talked about autism, that's when the views came. That's lots of views. So we decided to go down that path.
We want to share whatever you guys want to know. So Andrew and I met online. He was
2017.
Yeah, he was a lucky swipe right.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to play squash the first time we met.
Squash date.
Yeah, and I friend zoned him for quite a few reasons. One being that he was just out of a long-term relationship. He had been with someone for 9 years, and he had only been single 10 months.
Yeah.
Another one being that I was still crushing over someone who was traveling, and Andrew just didn't feel like my type. I didn't think we vibed romantically. And so we started hanging out for the next year, and it very, very slowly grew into something more. It was like a slow burn to romance.
I would add a couple of dips.
Yeah.
Because we didn't talk for like 4 or 5 months.
That's true. Why don't you tell them how we started dating, Andrew?
April 2017, Bumble, made a really cute profile, put some nice pictures on there. How?
Like our first real date.
1 year into our friendship, I didn't know that the way that I was acting was going to lead to a relationship or could lead to a relationship.
Andrew started asking me to do yoga almost every day, and he started texting me to say goodnight. And then he asked me to go for Easter dinner at his family's. And I was like, this is starting to feel like more like friends. But Andrew...
More than friends.
Andrew didn't think so. He didn't notice. So it got to a point where I was just like, how about we go on a real date?
Oh, I'm not in the friend zone anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do it.
And then we went on a real date, and we've been together ever since. That was 5 years ago.
That was 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's 2023.
It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So our relationship was amazing in many ways, but there were quite a few struggles between us with our communication. And I was struggling to understand certain things about Andrew, and I was taking things personally that I shouldn't have been taking personally because we didn't know he was autistic. He didn't know, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. We almost broke up a couple times.
Well, not we, you.
I almost broke up with him a couple times.
I didn't know at all. I thought everything was fine.
So by a stroke of luck, one night I was at Andrew's and I saw on his bookshelf a book called Shadow Syndromes, the milder forms of major mental disorders that sabotage us. Mm-hmm. And Andrew had told me about the book before, and I was struggling to understand my own moods. And I asked Andrew if I could borrow it. And he was like, yeah, here you go. And when reading that book, there was a chapter called Autistic Echoes, and it was just a small chapter in a large book. And every page I read, it was just like, this is Andrew. This is Andrew. I think he's autistic. So I hardly slept that night. I was up till like 3 a.m. just going over all of our issues in our head as I read all of these things in this chapter about visual thinking and him taking things literal and him not being connected to his emotions. And it really, really helped me understand where some of our issues were coming from.
The need for sameness and routine, the limited interest, the repetitive behavior. Also, Andrew, he follows a pattern for everything he does. There's just like 3 pages.
There's 3 pages of me having epiphanies of being like, whoa, that's
Visual
Andrew.
thinking. Yep, Andrew thinks in pictures. He once described a picture to me to explain a story. What? He needs things spelled out. He needs people to be direct. But when people are direct, he can get it. And that makes all the difference. Definitely Andrew. If I don't explain things in detail, he will have no idea what I expect from him. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did really good with that book.
I took a couple weeks to digest the information and do more research before I approached Andrew about it. And how I approached him about it was, let's both get to know ourselves, because it's not I think there's something wrong with you conversation. It's I think we're different conversation. I was leaning towards possibly being like a milder side of bipolar, like having seasonal depression and stuff with my moods. And I thought Andrew was autistic. So I wanted us both to explore what we were. And when I approached Andrew about it, he was completely up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was eye-opening. I could tell that you did a lot of work to figure all this out. So I'm always interested in learning new things.
Yeah.
And going, just learning, growing, I don't know.
Putting the work in to learn about ourselves now means we get to enjoy that the rest of our lives.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can feel that. That's for sure. Learning about feelings was pretty big. I think it was 2019 when I first downloaded the feeling wheel.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm looking at the feeling wheel like, I know these, and I look a little closer and I'm thinking, ooh, there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of I don't know. Like I started to think about it in a certain way, where like there were specific ones, and I would ask myself like, well, how strongly do you recognize that versus this one? How strongly do you recognize this one and this one? And some of them felt very superficial, as in, oh yeah, that's happy. I'm happy. But then I started to notice like, oh, when I go to work, I feel this way. But then when something happens, that way can lead to this way. And then when I feel this way, usually it leads me to act this way. And then I feel the oh. So you can see patterns like A, B, C or A, B, C. And you can, it was like, so as I started to learn more about it, I really realized that I'm like there's a huge skill set that I'm missing. It was very obvious. It was a huge skill set that I'm missing.
Yeah. And we had communication struggles in certain areas. It hurt my feelings that Andrew couldn't talk about the future. I thought it meant he...
Well, and I couldn't talk in feelings, right?
Yeah,
that the feeling wheel, whenever Michelle would ask me like feeling questions, I would have to like translate it, because I don't know feelings, so I have to translate it to like what that means in logic, right? So I would never answer with feeling words. I would always answer more like, I don't know, like a calculator, or just very matter of fact, or very, it's kind of hard to explain in a way. But.
And because we didn't understand autism, it made me feel like he didn't care about me as much, and I was taking it personally.
Couldn't have been further from the truth.
Yeah, but reading that book was really eye-opening. Yeah. So we ended up finding an amazing doctor who specialized in adult diagnosis, and we got on a wait list. It took a little while for us to apply, and we happened to just get in as our plane was taking off one day, and it was a stroke of luck to get into that intake session.
Yeah, we signed up for the intake session about 400 feet off the ground.
Yeah, as the stewardess was like, man, put your phone away.
I've been waiting for months for this moment.
Yeah. And one of the most amazing things about the diagnosis process was I was allowed to sit in on the sessions with Andrew. And we learned so much about each other through that process.
Yeah, I would recommend that.
Well, unfortunately, it's not available for many people, right? If it is available, we recommend it. But
yeah, if it's available.
The fact that we even found a doctor that specialized in adult diagnosis was amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was covered by insurance was even more amazing. And that doctor's no longer taking clients anymore.
And by covered by insurance, we had nothing to do with any of that insurance.
No, it was...
Like the government funds the program, we just drive there. That's it.
Yeah, we were very blessed. And most people don't have that luxury, which is why we put our entire diagnosis process in our book.
And I thought it was great that as I'm talking to the doctor, you're there listening, and the doctor can clarify what I'm saying, and then you're hearing that. And then I'll look at you, or I'll, like, you'll come into the mix too, and we'll all talk. It was great. It added to it. I don't know.
It helped us, absolutely. So what did we learn in those sessions? Some of the biggest things. When the doctor talked about, when the doctor talked about Andrew not being able to generalize, because Andrew couldn't answer some of the questions on the
they
painting.
felt like it's like, do you know?
Would you rather go to the library or the party?
Yeah. It was like it was like a question that asks for like a binary answer, like, would you do it this way or that way? And it's like, what? Yeah, would you, like, on a Friday night, would you rather go to the library or would you rather go out partying with friends? And I'm like, well, what's the context, man? And that is one thing that drives me crazy in general in the world is so often, especially on, like, I don't know, just what do you say, like formal documents, any kind of formal documents? Oh God.
Andrew hates documents. So when the doctor said that Andrew had an inability to generalize, it really helped me realize some of our miscommunications, because I generalize a lot.
Well, it was really neat because I was there, like you had a big epiphany while I was having a big epiphany in front of the doctor.
Yeah.
Because the doctor's clarifying within the context of autism why I'm struggling. And that was that was outrageous, because I'm there kind of arguing like, well, this is a ridiculous question. I can't really answer this question. I mean, I could answer it, but it wouldn't feel right. It would feel like something's missing. Like, okay, I'd probably rather go to the library, but then 40% of me is like, well, but no, sometimes I want to go. Like sometimes I might want to go out with friends. Like if we're gonna go, I don't know, eat some good pizza somewhere. But then when the doctor explained to me, like, Andrew, that's an aspect of autism. Like Andrew, exactly what you're doing right now symbolizes that. That's something that would put you on the spectrum. And I'm like, I do that a lot. Right? Like, because then I'm just taking what he's like, I'm taking the formula of what we're talking about, and then I'm extrapolating and thinking about it in every other moment in my life that I've done that. And I'm like, oh, I do that a lot. So it blew my mind. And Michelle's there, same thing, mind blown.
Yeah,
it's
and
great.
This was like our first 20 minutes there, I think, because
either
Andrew...
the first or second session, and I was like, oh, this is great. I'm so happy to be here right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I say diagnose. I would recommend a diagnosis. Like, I wouldn't hard recommend it. I would, and again, this is me having trouble generalizing. I would recommend it like 55%, not like 100%, because you're going to have really awesome moments with a doctor to clarify things that you might not understand, or it might be kind of fuzzy, and then he's gonna make it very clear for you.
Yeah, and it helped me because I realized I had been generalizing when I was talking to Andrew, because I do that. And I needed to be more specific. So I'll give you an example of this. Andrew and I were friends for a year. So when we started dating, one of my issues was that we still felt like friends, like aside from adding some physical stuff. He still treated me like a friend for the most part. And I didn't like that. I wanted to feel more like a girlfriend. So I was telling him I wanted more romance and more chivalry. But he didn't know what that meant, and nothing was changing. But as soon as I made it specific, like, hey, if we're on a date night, can you open the door for me so it feels like a date? Or can you carry a couple of my items when we're walking up the mountain? Like, can you just do some things that feel more romantic, like a boyfriend? And once I gave him specifics, Andrew was happy to do it. But when I was generalizing, it didn't make sense to you.
I think the nice thing about the specifics for me is the visual. Right? Because when you're generalizing, then my visual mind might think of a few things, but then it's like, is that what she means? Is that what she means? And then that doesn't feel right. Like, so when Michelle says specific things, then I can take those specific things, visualize them, and again, extrapolate from that. And think, okay, like anything with that formula too. And then I can just create my own visuals, and then it helps.
It also helped us realize why I can never give Andrew directions, because he thinks in pictures, and that's not how I describe things.
Oh, I think the majority of people, when they try and give me directions, I'm like, just please send me a pin on Google. Just, because people will use like directions, and it's like, no, because usually people will say directions too quickly. Like when someone gives me directions, I need to plant myself where they are, provided I can see it in my mind. And then as they're giving me directions, it's funny, I'll just make my way to that destination. And then when I'm there, then I just visualize, okay, well, then now you're there. But often it's, it just doesn't work. It's too fast or it'll just, it's a struggle to keep like my brain's visual elasticity is like it's pretty good, but my elasticity is stretched to its limits when, like, say, as they're telling me the directions, they might like not stay on track, and then maybe they'll have to go back. So like as maybe they're kind of ebbing and flowing with directions, like, or was it the left, or did you turn? Oh, I think there's a really good Tim Hortons on that thing. It's like, oh, like all I'm doing is standing in my mind, like, oh God, please stop talking, like, because then I'll lose the visual, and then be like, oh yeah, I like the Timbits at that one. And then they'll start saying the directions again, and then I'm just like, whoosh, they'll back into. But it's hard to get pulled, to push yourself into the visual and then you pull yourself back out again. Happens like it's really jarring when that happens, and it will happen if you start changing the subject matter or if something happens. Right? So it's like, please just give me a pin, or just say, you could tell me a landmark and then be like, across the street from there. Oh, okay, because then I can just drive there in my head and then just think, oh, okay, it's over. It's like right there, or it's right there, kind of thing.
Yeah, so that helped us a lot, learning about the generalizing and black and white
Huge,
thinking.
huge.
Another thing that helped us was when Andrew said he feels like he loses IQ points when he has to look at someone in the eye when he's talking about something, when he's telling a story.
Yeah.
And that helped me, because when Andrew asked me to go for dinner, Easter dinner at his family's, he looked at the wall and then asked me. And there were many times where he looked up and wasn't looking at me, and I felt a lack of connection between us until I understood why he was doing it. And then it didn't make me feel a lack of connection at all. I realized that's just how he is.
Like if I'm looking at this camera right now as I'm talking, unless what I'm saying is pretty much pre-recorded in my mind, which it usually isn't.
We like to wing it.
Yeah. But like if I'm free associating, I can't free associate anywhere near as well if I'm looking at something, because my mind is using resources. So just like a computer, my mind's using resources, like watching, like, hey, look at your face. Hey, there's Michelle. Oh, hey, there's a chainsaw outside right now. Is that gonna? There's so many. So you close your eyes, and then then it helps you to just stare at what you're trying to describe in your head. You know, it helps me to focus on the visual in my mind.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that really helped us in the diagnosis was we learned why Andrew hates the show Friends, which was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that like I told the doctor, like, yeah, I can't stand this show Friends. Like it makes me cringe. I don't get it. I don't think it's funny at all. Like a part of me is like, oh, that's when you laugh.
And the doctor pointed out that the show is all about comfort and happy feelings with like exaggerated like facial expressions, and it's all about giving you good feelings, but there isn't really much to the show, like to the plot. And Andrew doesn't need those good feelings, and he doesn't get them that way.
Yeah, I'm learning about all this stuff right now. I think I totally do need these good feelings. But yeah, like I said, yeah, I'm cultivating that right now.
You don't get them from facial
well,
expressions, though.
yeah, like when I'm watching the show and it's like, I'm like, okay, okay, right, okay.
You get good feelings from fixing things.
Yeah, right now, it's almost like I have a list of places where I know I get good feelings from, but I'm learning more about getting good feelings in other ways, but it's very subtle. But I'm noticing that it more. But still, yeah, if I watch the show Friends, yeah, I don't get, like, in the back of my mind, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you acting that way? Like, what's going? But he was saying, yeah, it's like it's exaggerated, right? So I think that's why, like, okay. So how do I'm trying to think of how to explain this really well. And this is what I was telling Michelle a few days ago. When I talk, or like when someone's talking to me, if they're talking in, it was last Tuesday. So if they're talking
At you.
at
Not
you,
to you.
not to you, that like, or no, like, but not just that, but if they're talking in certain ways, like if they're talking in audible ways, like, does that sound good to you? Or it was neat the way this one gentleman described like ways of communicating. Like you can describe it in audio, you can describe it in visual, you could describe it in kinesthetic, and just the way things are expressed with words and with body language. My mind, I didn't realize this until a few weeks ago, and it was very apparent, and it was really eye-opening. So my mind has to translate that to visual speak, like, because my brain thinks in visual and audio. Like I can listen to, I don't know, Oasis Wonderwall. Like I can play that in my mind, and I can hear everything, like all the instruments, all the vocals. I can hear it in my mind, and then I can visualize. So whenever somebody talks in emotion, I have to. I don't even know I do this. I've been doing this my whole life, and only recently did I realize like I'm actually translating in real time what the person's saying from emotion or from like audio to visual. So if somebody starts talking with feeling words and starts describing things with feelings, I try to visualize it the best I can because I don't get it. So I have to use the best resources I have available, which is translating to visual and then doing the best you can.
I've actually drawn images for Andrew when I was upset with him.
Amazing.
And it helps him a lot. I drew a picture of me juggling a bunch of things like baby, TikTok, writing the book, this and this and this. And then I said, when I get upset with you, I just need you to grab a ball and help. And I drew the actual picture, and Andrew was like, can you do this all the time? Like for me to look at it like a picture?
Yeah, like you literally draw your argument or just whatever you're trying to express. The problem with work, okay, so if you're visual and you're translating visually, the problem is like as you're talking, it's just like your visuals are happening in sequence, okay? As Michelle's describing what's wrong, the sequences are happening in my mind. But then I forgot the sequence from 5 sequences ago, okay? But when she drew it, all the sequences are there at once. And I can look at it and I can keep putting one of, like if it were verbal, it would probably be like 40 sequences, say like 3 paragraphs or something of words, but there would be like a sequence of like, and then this, and this. So it would be like visual, and then I have to visualize it. So each one of those visuals would be like one sequence, right? Man, yeah, drawing it, you can see all the sequences at once, and then Michelle can point it, and then I can ask questions about it, like, okay, so if I do this, this, and this, then you like this. Yes, it's like, okay. Because as we're talking, it's like you just get lost in translation. And I can feel something, but it's like 10% of what it could be if you can just draw it. Just draw the whole thing the best you can.
Making lists also really helps us.
Yeah.
And routines really help us. So if there's something I need Andrew to do, if he puts it in his routine and he does it at the same time every day in his nighttime routine or in his morning routine,
Great.
we don't struggle anymore. And it's amazing. But getting those routines right at the beginning was tough. But rather than always having to ask him to help me with stuff, we've made a couple things. For example, Andrew does the dishes every night before bed. Every night he loads the dishwasher, which is a huge help on me. And every morning I empty it. And before that, we always kind of had like sometimes he did it, sometimes I did it, and sometimes I'd do it 4 days in a row and I'd get mad at him and then I'd be like, you have to help. And now that we have a routine.
Well, you gave me the visual, like sometimes you can get your point across with one sequence, with one visual. Michelle said to me, so here it is. I like it when in the morning, the kitchen is clean. The dishes are put away, the counter is clean, and it's organized. And then I see that in my mind, and I think, okay, just create that. Simple, right? So that's a really simple, almost like one single sequence that I can be told, and then it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think
just create that.
After months of us fighting about it off and on, one day I said, I like to wake up in the morning to a clean kitchen so that I have space to make my tea and make breakfast and everything's clear. And Andrew was like, oh.
I think a part of it is, said, these are so interesting. Like, you're going to learn so much about your partner, because a part of it is that Michelle says, I like it when. Because I know I want Michelle to be happy. So a part of me is like, oh, so if I do this before bed, then that means in the morning, I know Michelle's going to be happy because the dishes are put away, or the dishes are clean and the counters are clean, and then she can do her thing, and then she's gonna be happy, and then that feeling is really strong. But sometimes you gotta draw that.
When we start arguing or things start going sideways, we usually have to just change our routine rather than constantly having these little conversations, and that really helps us big time, and Liz as well.
Yeah.
So our diagnosis helped us a lot. Andrew ended up being diagnosed in the summer of 2019. And he's done a lot of soul searching since then, and meditating and connecting to his emotions.
It's been, I think one of the greatest gifts with this is now it makes sense why my whole life it's felt like life keeps opening to me. Like in my teens, my 20s, my 30s now, life has never stopped revealing itself. And it's a gift, in a way.
I always say all we have in this life is who we become. So putting the work in, autism or not, putting the work in to learn who you are, what you like, what your issues are, how you can fix them, is worth it. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. Nobody likes doing it. Yeah. But then you get to know yourself better for the rest of your life.
It's really neat. I guess that's kind of where I was going with that. Is just that it's for anybody too. It's just autism is neat because when I realized how great my deficits were, I also know that that means that I have a lot to learn. That means that I can develop these skills really quickly, because as soon as you start learning about it, the fact that, well, how do I say this? It's like when you realize that you're very, very you've never explored feelings, then as soon as you start doing it, you start learning things. But then usually as you make progress, more and more progress, then you kind of do a little more work, and then you get something. So
yeah.
So it was really neat. As soon as I started to do this, I could feel it, that I was learning something and that things were making sense, and it's exciting. I think that's a big part of it too. Knowing that life will keep unfold is very, very exciting. Yeah. And
doing it together made us stronger. So if you like this presentation, our book, Friendship Love Autism, is available now. It has our entire diagnosis, all the tests Andrew took, everything in there.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, guys. It's all in there.
Yeah, I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, I think you sounded great. I think it was great.
Yeah, I think it was good. I'm trying to I don't know, describe really special things. Sometimes it's really hard to, to really feel like you got it and you expressed it well. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.